And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your sensei, me, that guy. You agree out here to tell you a story and don't believe a word I say. Here it is, Thursday, I think. And it's a beautiful day. It's been a nice day. And I came down to talk to you guys. And just here's a little bit of radio that we can start off with. We can listen to.
For NPR News, I'm Stephen Massahan, Birmingham, Alabama. The number of people to file for unemployment insurance has fallen to its lowest level in 4 months. In the Labor Department's latest snapshot of jobless applications, 12,000 fewer people put in for assistance last week, putting the overall number at 219,000. Less volatile 4-week average also edged lower. The latest report coming a day after the Federal Reserve approved its first interest rate cut in 4 years by... And I believe that's true. Trump often says other people hate him, but I don't remember a time where he has said he hates someone. And I think that he is very offended. Potentially be much bigger. Brooke, who's adopted, is the daughter of a white single mother named Maggie, a lawyer who advocates for reproductive rights and who's disappointed by her daughter's new job. While lingering in the hallway outside her mother's kitchen, Brooke... International attention is focused on the upcoming American elections. This suggests that the Israeli army might be preparing to execute a malicious plan to strike Lebanon like they struck Gaza. The New York Times reports the electronic pagers had been manufactured by a company in Hungary, BAC Consulting, that was actually a front company run by Israeli intelligence officers. Many of the pagers were obtained earlier this year after Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah warned against using cell phones to avoid Israeli surveillance. On Wednesday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned nations against weaponizing civilian objects. The logic of making all these devices explode is to do it as a preemptive strike before a major military operation. So, as important as the event in itself is the indication that this event confirms that there is a serious risk of a dramatic escalation in Lebanon, and everything must be done to avoid that escalation. This all comes as Israel's declared it's launching a new phase of war, redirecting forces from Gaza to Israel's northern border with Lebanon. But Israel's carnage in Gaza continues, with deadly attacks reported today in Rafah and Jabalia, while many children were injured in an Israeli quadcopter attack on Nuseirat. Rescue workers are rushing to return its settlers to the northern part of occupied Palestine. And I imagine that this is how most media organizations will be reporting on this war.
So that's Gaza. That's Israel. That's Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran. And see, people think of it as isolated there. But no, there's stuff going on in Syria and Iraq and that whole area. And, the Houthis, and there's also the Saudi Arabia. So you have to realize that this is all just staged, right? And it's what we're going to have is the October surprise, right? And basically, what I see happening is the detonating of people's cell phones and pagers and walkie-talkies, severely injuring 5,000 people, killing about 60. And it's not like, Lebanon's used to Israel shelling them, bombing them, that kind of stuff, tanks coming into their neighborhood when things get rough. But no, if you're just at the most of these people were like at the supermarket. They weren't like on the field. They weren't in just about to attack Israel. No, they were just, buying breakfast. And that's why so many innocent individuals, because that one Hamas guy, the Hezbollah guy, who was, online at Starbucks, bang, and, the people within 30, 40 meters of him lost fingers, eyes, chunks of their head, their gallbladder, whatever. So once this kind of technology is used as it is, it's a large negative for Israel because, yeah, strategically, not strategically, on the surface, they interrupted, they stopped Hezbollah being able to trust its communications. But I'm sure Hezbollah has set plans when something like this happens. They don't have to communicate. If they're going to do what they're going to do, they're going to do it. And so, Janie, did you get my? I've been trying to email you one of my novels. Did you get it? Metamorphosis of Babylon. Work. Just want to pop and say hi. So, Janie, did you get it? I can send without any problem documents to people who are on Gmail, right? But people are on other platforms. And I really have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to all this. But anyway, so the October surprise is, Hezbollah and Iran have actually been very, Israel has been killing a lot of their higher ups and doing it in a very appropriate, outside the guardrails of diplomacy. I mean, diplomacy is an extension of war, right? So anyway, and this is not going to be good for the Israeli people because at a certain point, Israel and Iran realized that Israel's just going to attack them anyway. It's probably going to attack them with nuclear weapons right off the bat, right? And so, because they can't really invade, I mean, the last time Israel did that to Lebanon, it didn't turn out too good for Israel. So, I would say, we're getting very close to October. Both sides are going to, and the Houthis too, right? If the Houthis and Iran and Hezbollah and people in Syria and all just start shooting at Israel, their little Iron Dome ain't going to be able to do too much, right? And if we get involved, we have these 3 aircraft carrier groups off to the side. Each one of those aircraft carriers worth like, when you include the cost of men and the airplanes and everything, close to having, close to $20 billion a piece, if not more. We got 3 of them there, and they have all the destroyers and submarines and everything, right? In a very tight little, they can't run away. They can't get away. It's logistically, you don't want to keep an aircraft carrier bottled up. You want to keep it out there in the Pacific or out there in the Atlantic and reach out and touch somebody, right? Because then your hardware is relatively protected by the ocean, the miles of it, not ours. So we have 3 of these things there. So if Iran, Hezbollah, and all attack all at once, that'll be, Israel probably lose close to 100,000 people, give or take. Maybe more, way more, maybe less, who knows, but a lot more than 1,200. And it will mess up their pretty little country too, right? And then if the United States sends off a bunch of aircraft, well, no longer are we just sending Israel weapons. We are involved, right? And so that'll bring it home, baby. Right? And that's what the powers that be. See, the powers that be want to break up the present structure of globalized commerce, right? It's working too well, right? There's, people are getting tired of the forever wars. even if they were in little countries like Afghanistan and Iraq that had nothing to do with us, except we lost our children there and a lot of money. But Lockheed made a lot of money. Boeing made a lot of money. Dick Cheney made a lot of money. You know, the fact that Dick Cheney, the guy who is Dr. Strangelove of COG, is all for Camelot really makes me, I don't know. Right? So what I'm saying here is it really doesn't matter whether Camelot gets in or Donnie. We have already toast, meaning we are so bovine, we are so domesticated. I mean, why I'm out here in the middle of nowhere is because it is an amazing litmus test of the rest of the United States, what people are doing here. So all these cockroaches, all these people think they're rich, they're driving their Audis and their Integras and their, Mercedes here and all the, things, they don't even, they are changing their things because there are no income tax here. That's why people from California, Texas, Florida, Charlotte, North Carolina, places like New York, New Jersey are all coming here because they don't want to pay income tax. And they are crushing the populations here. So the property taxes, meaning the expenditure of money on things like school and roads and stuff like that, won't matter. They want to crush it to zero. And 10 years ago, I was telling the population around here, hey, it's going to happen. Oh, no, we're going to spin this way forever. Nobody's going to come here. We're too far away, blah, blah, blah. We're all set in our ways, blah, blah, blah. No, we're good for that, blah, blah, blah. Right? So, so what you're going to see is if Donnie gets in, they're going to get rid of the education department, right? They're going to get rid of the health, anything that is a safety net to the public, they're going to get rid of, right? And anything that deals with the infrastructure that isn't connected to, like the railroads, railroads will work for moving corporate materials, people, and there will be a number of security hoops, and so there's going to be, let me see your papers. And basically, we will have the, we already have it. Everyone has one of these things, If you've got one of these things, and you see this X, I put it on my phone, 2 years ago, because what I know is going to happen is, I don't know anything. I mean, really, I don't know anything. Don't believe a word I say. But the basic dynamic of we live in a this is spyware. This is a miniaturization of the keyhole spy satellite of 1975. Right now, you're carrying it in your pocket, and so we are being surveilled. All of us. Now, listen to everything you say. I mean, everything I say on this show, everything that conversations I have with people, it's all recorded. I mean, we got more server space than the universe. So, I mean, no one's listening to it. If they want to, they can. But hey, I'm an open book. Here I am, right? And I really have, what do I believe in? Nothing. I only have faith and love for creation. That's not too violent. I only believe in love, period. Right? Because, it's what is going to fix the planet. Love, right? Not hate, not putting itself in a side like, oh, those Democrats, oh, those, no. So I found at a yard sale just a ton of these hats for like 50 cents a piece. They were all different things too, not just one thing. So anyway, so ask me something about this, Well, here, listen to this if I can find it.
But I think it's important important for us to go back a little bit in history and recall that Zionist organizations as early as 1919 were pushing for the demarcation of the border after the Litani River, which means 30 kilometers or 19 or 20 miles deep inside Lebanon. So this is not really very much about returning the settlers to their homes, but this is about this long-standing desire and intent of the Zionist project to seize the Litani River. And Bitar, finally, or I should say parts of the Litani River. Yes. Will this make Hezbollah more popular in do that? I don't see how they think they are a solution by undermining faith in what we do. That's been very confusing. Is she fighting for me? There you have it, and I expect you will see that in some form of an ad, but we'll see. When he says, I was famous and this couldn't have happened, he was not that famous then, with all due respect to him. He was a New York developer who was trying to boost his own brand and trying to get headlines all the time. He was not the Donald Trump of now, who's the most ubiquitous presence on the planet, but this notion that everybody stepping on a plane immediately said, there's Donald Trump. I mean, forgetting about, I was obviously not there. I'm not weighing in on what happened, but the idea that people getting on a plane would have immediately said, oh, look, there's Donald Trump, saying he would veto a national abortion ban, and Trump sort of throwing Vance under the bus. And Vance on Sunday on one of the talk shows said that he had learned his lesson not to speak for Trump when they haven't had a conversation about it. It was pretty reasonable for J.D. Vance to believe that's what Trump had said, because Trump was trying to leave the impression that's what he was going to do. But I think in general, Trump is quite happy with him. He often has the shock of Tuesday when all of these pagers exploded, killing 12 people, injuring close to 3,000. And then yesterday, more explosions and walkie-talkies, and not clear what other electronic devices the support of the party, and it doesn't really consequences. To me, that is the biggest ethics violation and an example of elected officials not being accountable. Several prominent government officials.
Now listen to this. This is the congressional view.
This is not a song, just a greeting composed by Ziad Rahbani. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh. As rights groups warn, dehumanizing rhetoric around Israel's U.S.-backed war on Gaza has put the lives of Muslims and Arabs in the U.S. at risk. We look now at the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing Tuesday on the tide of hate crimes in America. Committee Chair, Democratic Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, called the hearing. His constituent, Hanan Shaheen, sat in the front row. Her 6-year-old son, Wadie Al-Fayoum, was stabbed to death in an anti-Muslim hate crime by her landlord in a Chicago suburb in October. Shaheen herself was also stabbed at least 12 times. Durbin has introduced a resolution honoring Wadie, along with Illinois Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, who will join us in a minute to discuss growing support for the Wadie Act. We'll also be joined by the Arab American witness at Tuesday's hearing, who faced hostile questions from Republicans, Maya Berry, Executive Director of the Arab American Institute. But first, let's go to Republican Senator John Kennedy questioning Berry.
You support Hamas, do you not?
Senator, oddly enough, I'm going to say thank you for that question, because it demonstrates the purpose of our hearing today in a very
Let's start
effective
first
way.
with a yes or no.
Hamas is a foreign terrorist organization that I do not support. But you asking the executive director of the Arab American Institute that question very much puts the focus on the issue of hate in our country.
Well, I get your answer, and I appreciate it. What is the... You support don't you?
Again, I find this line of questioning extraordinarily disappointing,
Is that a no?
Senator. That you have Arab American constituents that you represent in your great state.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that, but my time's limited, and I apologize, but is that a yes or a no?
Yes or no question to do I support Hezbollah? The answer is I don't support violence, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, or any other entity that invokes it.
You can't bring yourself to say no, can you?
No, I can say no. I can say yes.
But
What
you
I can say is
You just
your
can't
line
bring
of
yourself to
questioning.
it. Do you
Senator.
support or oppose Iran and their hatred of Jews?
Again, I'm going to emphasize Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, none of them is going to.
You can't bring yourself to say no.
Sir, I don't support.
It's real simple.
Excuse me. I'm going to. If I may, as a Muslim woman, sir, I'm going to tell you I do not support Iran. But what I will tell you is that this conversation.
I'm running out of time. I'm
okay.
sorry. You called our decision to cut funding. You called our decision to cut fund. Well, first, what's the United Nations Relief and Works Agency?
It's UNRWA, which is the institution that exists to provide services and aid to the nearly 6 million Palestinian refugees.
And you called our decision to cut funding for them, quote, an incredible moral failure, close quote.
That is absolutely correct. But again, I would suggest that conversation is about foreign policy.
We did that because 9 UNRWA staff members were fired for actually helping Hamas on October 7th. Isn't that case?
I don't believe that that's correct. In terms
Let me ask you one more time. You support Hamas, don't you? You support UNRWA and Hamas, don't you?
Sir, I think it's exceptionally disappointing that you're looking at an Arab American witness before you and saying you support Hamas.
You know what's disappointing to me?
I do not support Hamas. I do not support Hamas.
You don't support UNRWA. You don't support Hamas. I was
very clear in my support for UNRWA.
You don't support Hamas. You should hide your head in a bag.
You should hide your head in a bag, Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana told Maya Berry, Executive Director of the Arab American Institute, at Tuesday's Senate hearing on hate crimes. Maya Berry joins us now in our New York studio and in the Cannon Rotunda in Washington, D.C. We're joined by Congressmember Delia Ramirez of Illinois. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Maya Berry, you are now the head of the Arab American Institute. During 9/11, you were the legislative director of the Minority Whip, Congressmember David Bonnier. You're well known on Capitol Hill. Can you talk about what Kennedy said to you and talk about the other 2 witnesses as well? It's difficult to talk about what Senator Kennedy said to me because I still, sitting here in front of you, actually do not know what he meant when he said, put a bag over your head. I worry about the senator's 31,000 plus Arab American constituents and the rest of the constituents he represents from Louisiana. That kind of bigotry and hatred is difficult to hear from anyone, but to actually experience it at a hate crime hearing from a sitting member of this institution was pretty extraordinary. The hearing itself, but you're right to point this out, is incredibly important to do. We have been year after year after year breaking records for the number of hate crimes in our country, a trajectory that's increased since the 2015 year, which tied with the 2016 presidential election. And the fact that the hearing that was supposed to cover the issue of hate crime and how to formulate a better response was derailed by a group of senators who chose to have the conversation about a political agenda they wanted to advance with regards to Israel, and instead use it as an opportunity to further dehumanize people. It's not how we fight anti-Semitism, and it's certainly not how we fight anti-Arab racism. Maya Berry, could you speak specifically about the increase in hate crimes from 2023 to 2024, in other words, following the October 7th attacks and then the war, the assault on Gaza? Yeah, there's been a sense, obviously, anecdotally, and looking at specific news accounts, that there's been an increase. One of the things that we did in preparation for the hearing is that we actually pulled all of the 2023 data from 27 states plus that both Trump and J.D. Vance, more Vance than Trump, but Trump talked about it in the debate, have been pushing, which is this baseless claim that Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, have been eating pets. Now, officials there have said this isn't true. Officials statewide have said this isn't true. They have persisted with this. And what I keep thinking about is some Democrats I was talking to after the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. They were very happy with how the convention went. And it was a successful convention, which is pretty remarkable considering that there was a different nominee a short time before that. But one of the things that some of the Democrats I was talking to were so happy about was this idea that Democrats were willing to make fun of Trump in a way that they really weren't 8 years ago. Obama made a size joke. A lot of people took note of. J.B. Pritzker mocked Trump as not a real billionaire, although Mike Bloomberg did a version of that in 2016 too. And they felt very good about this as evidence that they understood that a different type of campaigning is necessary against Trump. But you counter what's happening among Republicans, which is saying immigrants are eating cats, and these are just not equal in terms of what the two sides are saying. So there is an asymmetry here, which is something of a heads Republicans win, tails Democrats lose, as if you're in a casino, because Republicans are just pushing the bounds of what have been historic norms in campaigns to go out and talk about a story that they have been told there's no evidence for, and to keep saying they believe it's true is just something different.
I'm just wondering, you must talk to other Republicans, including, I assume, some kinds of conversations with Trump campaign officials. Do they seem to believe this is true, or do they not care?
My sense is they don't care that much. They are very happy to have a conversation about immigration, whatever form that takes, because immigration has been an issue on which the Biden administration has struggled, although I will say that I don't think it's a top-of-mind issue the way it was, and they're trying to push it out there because of that. So the fact or lack thereof of whether this story is true doesn't seem to be especially relevant.
I also wonder if, Donald Trump has now had two occasions in which, long rifles were pointed in his direction. There was also reporting some weeks ago of a potential plot by Iran to assassinate Trump. Do you have any sense of how this is affecting his psyche?
The shooting in Butler very clearly impacted him. It's different than what happened in Florida. In Florida, there were no shots fired at him. Obviously, a very scary incident, could have ended much worse and did not. But just fundamentally different, because Butler, there was a man on a roof. He fired a shot. Trump's ear was hit by something. He fell. Somebody was killed on stage. It was a terrifying moment. He was clearly impacted by that. And part of the tell there, Dave, is that he keeps talking about, or for a while was talking about, what happened over and over and over. And that's usually him working something out. So it was unquestionably scary to him. He's one of the most effective compartmentalizers I've ever seen in my life. But this is a very hard thing to put into a little box. The Iran threats do impact him, but not quite the same way. All of it, though, collectively has created this kind of siege mentality that the campaign has, and I think that is impacting a lot of how they behave.
In what way?
They're very reactive, they're very defensive, they're very bunkered. There's a sense of paranoia that is seeping through. For instance, Jonathan Swan and I reported a couple of weeks ago that there was an incident where some folks had put fake listening devices. They were toys bought from Amazon. It was a prank. Some campaign aide did a prank, and I think they still don't know who did it. But because the campaign had been the victim of hacking, an email hacking that they pointed the fingers at Iran over, and the FBI later said that the Trump team and the Biden team, former Biden team, had been the focus of attempted hacks by Iran. So there was this incident where somebody played a prank, but nobody was owning up to it, and a 911 call was made by officials on the campaign, and the office was swept, and police came because there is just a sense of paranoia, and I understand where it comes from right now.
Well, let's talk a bit more about the campaign here. You wrote a piece around the time of the Democratic convention and said that the Harris campaign had learned from the way Hillary Clinton's campaign had dealt with Trump approach. What did you learn from this experience?
Elevated all of Trump's antagonisms, his
So, same as it ever was. Nothing's changed, except what the outcome in the near future is going to be. And that's a totalitarian state. The guy, Mr. Roddenberry, who did Star Trek, he was a character actor in the show, and that before he went to Hollywood, he worked in naval intelligence, right? And he left naval intelligence. He went to Hollywood, and he went to Desilu, and he was a writer for like Gunsmoke and Wagon Train and that kind of TV show. And so he worked at that for a year or two, did okay, got his name around, and he started pushing the idea of Star Trek, which would, and CBS had Lost in Space, and there were a few other space, things. Kennedy was president, and we were going to the moon, and so he put forth, this wagon train in space, right? Cowboys in space. And he pitched it to Desilu. Desilu is, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Right? That was Desilu, and they were amazingly successful. They owned Paramount. They bought, for the money they made, and I Love Lucy for CBS. They bought Paramount, right? And all of the movies Paramount had, and Paramount actually had some TV stations sprinkled around the country, and so Desilu first, started producing TV shows for everybody, ABC, CBS, NBC, because they were so much cheaper than CBS, NBC, and ABC producing their own. So they were cornering the market and owning the programming, meaning CBS, NBC, and they didn't own it because they realized the real market was this up and coming thing called cable television, right? And so they were going to have all these movies, all these TV shows, and just rerun them. And so anyway, Star Trek was put on, and it was basically a psyops to give everyone on the planet, this is what the world's going to be in the near future. And how we get from here to there is going to be, who knows, but this is, the Federation is going to be what the planet's, and look how pretty San Francisco looks, and everyone has their own nice little apartment, and lives peacefully, and there's no war on Earth. But there's war everywhere in the rest of the constellation, and the contractors are still making money, and that power structure is just getting stronger and stronger because it's not just NATO and America, it's like other planets, that's what, Space Force, Downey created Space Force. So this is what we're heading toward. So we're either going to have a, extraterrestrial intervention, or we're going to have something go down between Israel and everybody in the Mideast that will precipitate a real jack in racism in this country. And then Jojo, who's still president, will sign, and he just signed, I think it was August 9th, he re-upped the Patriot Act. The original Patriot Act, the full Monty Patriot Act, was basically martial law. mean, you had no rights. Like I said, you got to have a bag over your head. I mean, they could come and do that to you, right? So we are looking at this in the near term, right? Some real serious disorder. I would say also someone, the Chinese floated a little spy satellite on a balloon. Well, they could have had a device in that. That sucker was as big as a school bus at about, 100,000 feet. If they had a what is known as a MEP, EMP, electromagnetic pulse, device that boom sets up a gigantic bus. It would fry where that thing kind of went across from like Canada, across the middle of America and exited in South Carolina and then got shot down. I mean, what the military was doing was listening to they had that thing covered with electromagnetic listening devices by aircraft and you name it. So they got more intelligence out of that thing than the Chinese got. But if there was an EMP on that, and it wasn't, let's say it's not even the Chinese, that could have wiped out your car wouldn't work, your refrigerator, no electricity for the foreseeable future because our system is already, Mr. Rothschild bought up everything in 1972 and basically just let it fall apart. We haven't done anything to keep anything up since 1972. So our water systems are look at we've had 3 or 4 pipeline explosions in the least a month. A couple in California, a couple some other places, and it's just going to be more and more because that system is ancient and has not been replaced or fixed or just stressed and stressed and stressed. And so that's what our October surprise is going to be, something of that nature. And also, I think Israel will use nuclear weapons either after they're attacked or before, saying we're doing it so we don't get attacked, and they're going to wipe out Lebanon, everyone in Lebanon, everyone in the Gaza Strip who are down south, and instead of like being 2 million or so, 2 point something million, it'll be like 50,000, 100,000, and really tattered, messed up people. But what will occur out of that will be a witch's brew smorgasbord of diseases, and Israel will be taken by those diseases, which they are not prepared for. I mean, they have a good 15% of their population that's super orthodox and don't go to the doctors, don't get polio shots or any kind of shots, right? And it's in the law that they could do that. Not only that, the males of those super orthodox who don't have to serve in the military, right? So Israel is really just on the razor's edge of their own demise from within because of the hubris. And you look at the Old Testament, and Israel, was whacked at least 6 times in the Old Testament, right? And every single time it was done in by its own hubris. You read it. You read Exodus. You read Leviticus. You read Numbers and Deuteronomy and Kings. It's all about the hubris of these people, So, and we're going to see it in a real short space of time. The last 20 years have been nuts. And I mean, really, I'm old enough. I'm pushing 80, and my skill set is that I'm very observant, and I have a very sharp memory. As a youngster, when I was at the Marino Sanctuary, they taught me this vivid speed reading course and a thing called Mind Castle, where you could find and remember because everything you see and hear, it like goes up there, right? And getting it back, that's a different question, but it's there. And this mind castle process is a very good little thing. It also sharpens your observation. So, no. Do, 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 do. Oh. Jane, you still there? Did you get your copy of a novel? I've tried many different ways. I don't know what it is. I've talked to a few people who seem to know more about the internet than me. But anyway, um, so Jamie, got any questions? What are you reading? What are you thinking? What's your observations of all that is going on around us? Any one? You know, I like the Purple Heart, the thumbs up, the flowers. I always like flowers. That's why around in the deep green, I planted all these indigenous flowering plants. They're all medicinal, but they all have flowers. Golden seal has flowers. The queen of the forest, bloodroot, um, they all have flowers. So, and the beauty of that is that they all come out at different times, not just the spring. They're all, meaning from about April all the way to December, I have flowers flowering. Sometimes in February, if it gets warm, those flowers will pop out. So, anyway, let's see if this works. Can you see that? Is that on your screen? So this is my book called Our Legends Anthology. So page 1, A, Roman numeral I, book cover number 3, and then I have Ecclesiastes 1, 1 through 7. And so whenever I write something, so I read the Bible all the time. So the Bible is always my motivator. It gives me the ideas, right? So when I'm reading that, I go, oh, and then I sit down and I start writing something from that. So Ecclesiastes, so you kind of have to keep that idea of Ecclesiastes, the first, and line 1 through 7. So Our Legends Anthology, book number 3, $, Poetry's Run-On Sentence, copyrighted by LBN in the deep green, 888. The day my mother died. Ex-Ratzed, RATZTED. You might go to something.org. I've been writing these novels now for about 4 years, 5 years, and I had a website, Griot Publishing, on something. Some of you might have gone and looked at it. So novel number 3, Ecclesiastes now, 2 through 11, 22, 3, 9, 5, 6. Our Legends Anthology, book number 3. Read this one first, maybe. Our Legends Anthology, even I call it the third book. I'm trying to be like George Lucas. Our Legends Anthology is book number 4, second in the X-rated series, third. And this is where it starts. To course over better waters, the little boat of my wit now lifts her sails, leaving behind her so cruel a sea, and I will sing of the second kingdom where the human spirit is purged and becomes fit to ascend to heaven. 1 Canton 1, Dante, the Divine Comedy. Love is all there is. When I hear so-called smart people go on about the bad Illuminati and the good religion, when they are both the same, thank you, I feel pity for them. And God says, what am I trying to say? I'm not like I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say is, I want to be with you, for I am not your boyfriend. I am just always with you. That's what God had to say. Night reveals what the day hides, what Mary's bump wasn't. Mary's bump wasn't that noticeable until it was. And in that moment, the reader says, please stop. I can't do this. Please stop. I don't want to walk alone upon the shores of Carmel with a cry of pain and fear upon my lips. I can never escape that very quiet, quieting voice in the dark part of me that's asked me if I was clever in wit. It follows my heart's shadow, my ego's pride. That's only fear of being found out. I am a ship equals wreck, a long, lonely, loveless latitude of a life. I've had no one. I said I need nothing more than my ego. I was very clever. My wit was sharp as a razor, ready to cut anyone who I perceived needed to be brought down. The only blood found has been my blood. I told myself, I don't need this voice asking me any questions. I had no time for love. I had no space for questions from my friends or allies. Only the rule of separation could protect me from love of co-creation, of unconditional forgiveness. So, did you guys get any of that? Did it appear on the screen? Oh, you know what? I can actually go look at this and see if it appears on the screen. Do. Ba-da-boo-boo. Yep, there I am. Let's see if this appears. Seemingly not. I just have to see. Hmm. Can I turn the camera around? See, that's the thing. I don't know anything about this stuff. I'll just go back. Back to live.
If we are prepared to allow a bully to tell us, you must just allow this democratic.
I guess I can't figure it out. Let's try this. There we go.
Yeah.
Hell of a ride coming in. It looks
Oh,
like.
yeah.
Anyway, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Oh. Oodie doody doody.
How's it going, sir?
I'm stretching. Those tacos were very nice.
Good, man.
Were you working in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, dear. So anyway, come on. Nobody's watching. 2 thumbs up. Thank you very nicely. You know, I think I gave you my little insights on what's coming. Our little October surprise in about a week or 2 or 3. It'll be interesting. I would stock up on toilet paper. But that little script I read from my third novel that you should read first, Legend.
Like what?
That was the first two paragraphs. The rest of the book's like that. It has characters, has action, it has lots of stuff. I've been trying to get it out. It's been difficult. But anyway, such is life. It'll be, I mean, I don't care. I'm sure just to serve God. God wants us out in a big way. You know, I have 18 novels, right? They're all been written to be made into movies, right? So anyone wants to get a hold of me, at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Right? What time is it? Okay. So, yeah, I got nothing else to say, I guess. Unless you guys start talking. I think I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go back and start cleaning. I'm doing my fall cleaning. Do, 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 do.